All right, welcome everybody to our February virtual tasting with Jody and Emily. Towe. I should have asked you this beforehand. I'm a terrible host. How do you guys pronounce the last name?
Towe.
Towe. Got it. Okay. With Jody and Emily Towe of Brix Wines. We're so excited y'all can join us here tonight. As a reminder, as we always do, just we're going to keep you muted for the discussion, but if you've got any questions for Emily and Jody, please throw them into the chat, and Allison and I will be monitoring that, and we'll ask them as we keep an eye on things. We are very close to starting to sell tickets to our Festival of Forgotten Grapes on June 29th. I know we mentioned that in the email. So keep an eye out for that. Probably by the time you get the next email, we should have tickets up and running for it. We'll see.
He's very optimistic, but
I am.
In the next 2 months.
We're building out the website for that, but we're super excited about that event. We've already got some really great confirmed wineries, some that we've worked with in the past that you've tasted in previous Forgotten Grapes months, some that are new to us in terms of not having featured them in the club, but that work with a lot of grapes, and a really excellent swath from up to Mendocino all the way down to Santa Barbara and Ventura and all points in between. So it's really coming together nicely.
And maybe San Diego.
And possibly San Diego as well. Hint, hint, wink, wink. But yeah, we're super excited about our first festival.
Location, just to jump in, because Marcy Joe asked, it will be on the east side, probably just outside the Arts District in downtown LA, most likely. There are a couple places, and we're just waiting to get our final count on wineries to lock in exactly which one it'll be.
Yeah, we've got a couple of venues that we're excited about, all in the greater downtown area. Just kind of on the periphery of downtown and some of those very hip areas. So we're excited about that. So, but without further ado, at this point, if you want to open up the Chenin Blanc, if you're going to join us, please feel free to do so. That is what we are going to start drinking tonight. And we're so excited to have Emily and Jody here. And as we always do, let me start by asking you guys, what is the most memorable bottle of wine that you have ever opened?
And is it the same one?
Yes.
So this is actually a very easy question for us to answer, because it was that bottle of wine that led to where we all are here today. It was in early 2007, and we were recommended, had a restaurant recommendation because we were really into wine, and a friend of ours said, oh, you have to go here. And so we ordered a bottle of Pinot Noir off the menu from a winery called Tantera. That we knew nothing about, but instantly just kind of, we had been learning a lot about wines from Europe and South America and things, but we hadn't really found a California wine that sort of grabbed us the way that those had, where it's like, this comes from a place, like this is from somewhere. And that wine, we had that experience, like, wherever this is from, we need to find out more about it. And so it turns out that at the time they were located in the Vineyard, an iconic classic California vineyard that we were unfamiliar with at the time. But it was, we just gave them a call and said, we love your wine. And, they said, well, thank you. They were small production, like maybe 5.
How much would you like to buy?
Right. They happened to be having, it was their 10th anniversary as a winery. It also happened to be our 10th wedding anniversary. And they said, well, we're having a party in the vineyard. You should come. We'd love to meet you and have you up. So, so we did. And it just turned into one of those epic experiences. We became fast friends with the winemakers. We spent many hours after the end of the party in the barrel room, tasting barrel samples. And just, it was really special. And just the human connection and the connection to the wines and the site, which is just so incredible. And they said, well, yeah, if you like this, you should come back at harvest time. We're always looking for help, and you can see where it all starts. And
Free labor.
Right. We know
Exactly.
I'm the healthy
They saw me, they were like,
marketers.
oh, this guy's really,
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Good
so
broad
we-
shoulder. Did they bring out the measuring tape or like measuring your
Yeah.
back and around the bicep? How much can you lift, Jody?
I guess I passed this test, but because we got invited up and we did, we crushed 20 tons of Pinot Noir in one day.
Oh my gosh.
We were the
Wow.
last two volunteers standing at the end of the day, and we were just like, this is awesome. I love it.
What year was this?
It would have been 07. And so
And
they
you
were,
guys were living in San Diego. So how many days were you up there, or were you kind of commuting back and forth?
yeah,
or-
we're going back and forth. We would come up for a couple days, and then they're like, well, if you want to learn everything, just keep, throughout the season, just keep coming up. So we would go up for bottling or just all the different aspects of winemaking. And they had 3 different winemakers on site who all had a little bit of a different style. So it was kind of fun to see how they all did it.
I'm sorry, which was the winery again?
Tantera,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Are they no longer open?
they are closed. Yeah, that's a
Because
recent.
I'm going to be in Santa Maria and I reached out and the number doesn't work, the website doesn't load, and I kept thinking,
That's a
yeah, they've ceased operations. I think they've
Oh.
just kind of
Was he
Yeah.
South African? Am I
second winemaker, Ricky.
is from New Zealand.
He's from New Zealand.
New Zealand? That's what it was. Okay, I have met them before. Yeah.
Yeah.
their-
yeah, I
their
knew
facility.
the original owner, like when I first
Oh.
got in the wine business and would do events here in LA, he would always come and then just the nicest man.
Yeah, they were great. They were very hospitable, East Coast Virginia boys. So,
So
yeah.
you did that first harvest, and then was that like the spark? Was that the point where you said we need to do this, more as a
was the
hobby or
spark.
professionally, or
Yeah, I think it was the spark, but then we kind of went back a little bit more the next year, and then the interns kind of called us when we got back to San Diego a couple weeks into November. They're like, "Hey, we're still here, and there's nothing to do. We're finished." And they were stuck there for Thanksgiving, so we're like, "Well, why don't you guys come in and hang out with us?" So all the interns came and ended up being at our house. So we
For Thanksgiving.
put them up for Thanksgiving, and we were all just kind of sitting there at the table, and we're like, you know what? Let's just make some wine in the garage. And we decided from that point we're gonna just make a little home winery just to see how it turned out. And we were really getting into Grenache at that time.
Mhm.
So we started to reach out to some of our friends with, hey, I think I want to do this. And they're like, well, here, I've got barrels for you. Call this guy, he'll give you some racks. And what fruit are you looking for? And it's like Grenache. Oh, well, here's a connection for that. So all that time we spent just helping out, it was just returned like so quickly. It was like, what a community.
It was very organic and very unplanned. We didn't set out to say we're going to start a winery.
right.
Because if we had done that and actually looked into what that meant, we never would have actually done
This
it.
is what happens when you sit around a table with a bunch of wine people and drink wine.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
walk
it's
away
something to
saying,
that
"Oh, I'm going to make wine."
Yeah. Sometimes it leads to a 2-year research project that
Yes.
ends with 547 cases dropped off at your door. But that's a whole other story right there.
So was this in 2008 or the end of 2007 that you decided this idea to make a little wine in the garage?
We decided in
Oh, wait.
Thanksgiving of 08, and then so we made wine the next year at 09.
So how much was a little wine made in the garage?
We ended up doing a ton and a half.
Oh, okay.
We had four barrels.
75 cases total.
Nice. That's a good amount. That's a good kind of like, more than a few carboys, but you don't need a forklift for that.
Exactly.
Is 75 cases that number where you need a commercial license, or do you have enough friends that you can drink it all?
Well, so
We shared a lot.
we shared a lot of that first vintage, but then once we realized we wanted to keep doing it, that's when you have to start
Yeah.
moving in that commercial direction to actually be able to sell the wine that you're making, and to be able to make more. So that happened on a very small scale for a few years, just still producing really small amounts. And then 2012 was kind of the first vintage where we were making enough to really start looking into distribution and to keep increasing production. So yeah, we've been.
And how many cases in 2012?
2012 was probably 300.
Yeah.
300 K.
And so since then, we've alternated depending on the vintage, but about 3,000 is kind of where we're at right now.
Oh wow, that's a large amount for just the two of you. Do you have helpers? Do you have your own interns these days that come in and help?
No, like the other winery has 2 people they use, and sometimes they'll help us a little bit on like sorting day, but otherwise it's really just us.
We work out of a shared facility where the owner of that facility is an estate winery here in San Diego, and they sell all their wine through their tasting room. So we're kind of their tenants, and on a smaller scale. But yeah, so they have a couple of employees who help us out now and then. But yeah, when we can get our kids, rope them into doing something or other, that's about the extent of it. We don't have our own employees.
Yeah.
How old are your kids?
Well, they're now 24 and 20.
Oh wow. Okay, so yeah, they are definitely primed to start taking over the family business. Do they like wine? Are they interested in the project and kind of carrying on the family legacy?
I don't know about the carrying on part yet. We'll see, but they are definitely interested in wine, and they ask a lot of questions, and they help when they can, and they get in there. Our son is more like in the cellar, and our daughter is obviously more on the up front, like.
She's great at making Instagram reels and
Yes.
showing up and pouring at tastings. She doesn't like to be cold or wet, so that's a little bit of a problem.
Yeah. That's what the front of the house is all about, being neither cold nor wet.
At least
And
we've
so
got both sides covered. So.
Yeah.
You're making 3,000 cases, and I know we touched upon this before we officially started. The wines we have today are sourced from San Ynez Valley, but you also do San Diego County. Are those kind of your 2 regions?
Yeah, and then Santa Maria and Los Alamos.
So yeah, we've kind of got a lot of appellations in the Central Coast, everything from the coast to the valley. And then in San Diego, depending on the year, we'll work with 3 or 4 different vineyards, between 3 and 5 different varieties.
And how do you scout the vineyards? I know on the website, Jody, it talks, it's kind of more your job, but what are you looking for? Is a lot of just the networks that you've created at that point, in terms of getting to know the vineyard managers or the owners to be able to get in? Because you've got some outstanding vineyards that you're sourcing from up in San Ynez, Santa Barbara County, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, definitely that. And then also it's like when we get on a new site, it has to kind of speak to us. We have to kind of feel it.
Yeah.
And obviously a like-minded vineyard manager that's more either certified organic or using organic principles. It's the same way we came to wine, but we were doing with food before that. It was like, it just made sense. So that's just kind of some of the things that we look for.
So at what point did you guys decide to jump into Chenin Blanc? A nice seg to the first wine that we've got, the old vine Chenin Blanc. Because you're talking Pinot, you're talking Grenache, I'm hearing a lot of Rhones, but Chenin is so unique and not one of those grapes that people kind of initially think of, especially in the Santa Barbara area, although there are some fantastic vineyards in that area.
Yeah, and I think it was this vineyard in particular that sort of led us to the idea of making Chenin Blanc is the Jurassic Park vineyard. We went to visit, and it's just, instantly, it's these own-rooted, super gnarled, like early 70s planted vines in sand, and just something that there was just a weightiness to it. Like you could tell these were serious vines, and the hope was that it would make a serious wine. I mean, we've enjoyed Chenin Blanc as wine drinkers for a long time. And yeah, it's not always something you think of as coming from California, but when we saw these vines, and this is a pretty well-known vineyard, a lot of wineries work with it. So we had a chance to taste wines from.
It's funny to drive through it because there's like 30 different producers that make Chenin Blanc there. So you can taste all different kinds of styles.
Yeah, so we just kind of wanted to crack at it to see what the vineyard has to say. I mean, that's usually our goal, is to work with these really amazing sites and then just sort of let them translate into the wine. So we're not taking any heavy-handed approaches like with this one. It's very classic, straightforward, direct to press. There's no skin contact. We wanted to just see what the site had to say. So picked a little bit on the earlier side. It's nice. I mean, this vintage I think is really just coming into itself right now. In the beginning, it was a little bit, it needed time to integrate, you know, because it's like below 12% alcohol, like a low pH, the acidity is high, but I think with time in bottle, it's sort of starting to show some nice secondary characteristics that you think of when you think of Chenin.
Half of the vineyard is mostly sandy loam, and then the other half goes sandy loam and then into gravel.
Okay.
As you go up the hill, and we're kind of on one of those going up the hill with both. I've never been like, hey, just pick half and let's make it 2 different ways. But it's fun to taste some that are from more on the floor side versus the hillside, and it's just a little more different characteristics. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, I was going to ask, have you been working with this vineyard now? Was this the first year, or have you?
This was the first year.
Okay.
Yeah, 19. 20 was a little riper, a little more tropical, I think.
Definitely.
And that was just what Mother Nature wanted to have that year. So.
And are you getting your fruit from the same blocks consistently, or is it more just like they kind of hear the bins and they give you an idea of where they came from, but you're kind of
it's the same row. It was
okay.
the same row. Yeah. They're
Got
pretty
it.
long. I think it's 2 rows. They're pretty long. So.
And is there an opportunity, like if you wanted to move into the sandier side just to explore that you could, or are you kind of really happy with what you've got?
I'm happy with what we have, and it's pretty limited because there's so many people that want Chenin from that vineyard. There's really only 2 or 3 other vineyards that have enough that you could get any from it as well. So.
Yeah, in fact, I was just the other night having a conversation with some people about the Jurassic Park vineyard and the Chenin Blanc. My friend Nate, who has Innate Cellars up here in Paso, he sources from Jurassic Park for his Chenin and does a wonderful job, just beautiful wine. But somebody had never heard of it, and we were sort of espousing its wonder and how great a vineyard it is. So
yeah, it's a special place for sure.
Nice. So I know that's one white you make. Are there any other whites that you guys work with, or things that you're interested in playing around with?
Yeah, we do Riesling from Kick on Ranch,
Okay.
Los Alamos, and we make that 3 different ways because we have almost 2 acres.
Wow.
So we do 3 picks out of that vineyard. One is for our pet nat. The next is for our still dry Riesling, and then the last pick is a little skin contact, and it usually picks up some botrytis. And then we also do Chardonnay from Riverbench.
Yeah.
I think my interest with 3 styles of Riesling. Yum.
Yeah.
I know a pet nat Riesling. That is a rarity here in California.
We've been making that since 2013.
Oh wow.
We actually did the Chenin one year. We did a small amount, just like 50 case run of the pet nat, because they're so fun to make and easy, not difficult at all.
Yeah. So I have to ask about, the distance between the vineyards and your production facility. Are you, up there kind of, how often are you testing? Are you going by the vineyard manager or whoever's there kind of, giving you the numbers every day and deciding when to pick? Are you letting them decide when to pick? Are you doing that? And then, how is it working with the air traffic controlling of different trucks coming in at different times and up and down the 101 and the 5, I imagine?
It's both, relying on them, and then as we get closer, the numbers look good, but final decision is always based on us tasting the grapes and going through and just picking and putting clusters in our mouth and being like, yep, that's it, let's do it, or no, this needs a little more time. I hauled all the fruit myself the whole entire time up to about 3 years ago.
Wow.
And so then I finally realized it would be a lot easier life for me if I could have someone help bring the fruit down.
How big a truck are you? Do you have a commercial license to drive?
I was just bringing down a 26-foot refrigerated truck, which you can bring 5 tons at a time. So,
wow.
Which I made the Camarillo grade every time, just holding my breath and
far right lane, hazard lights on.
Hoping I'm not overweight when I get to the weigh station. And yeah, so far, I made it the whole time. But yeah, it makes for some interesting times. But driving those are, they're very challenging as far as like when you get back to the winery, the last thing you want to do is deal with fruit, but you have to do it. So we found some ladies who haul horses around all year long, and then during harvest they haul grapes, and they're fantastic. So they bring all of our fruit down for the most part, and it's pretty fast, and the fruit's in great condition, and it's been nice to be able to plan and ahead of it and be in the winery rather than driving it down.
Yeah.
Bucks first. So.
And
I mean, everybody should find horse transportation by day and wine transportation by night.
Yeah,
I have written that down, and that is going to be what some of my first calls tomorrow. I'm calling up my winemaker and being like, who do we know in the equestrian world?
yeah.
It's true. Yeah. I mean, these women are amazing. They're, just ranch ladies. They get the job done.
Do they have their own flatbeds, or are they using reefer trucks, or?
Yeah, it's all flatbed.
Okay. Got it. Amazing. Wow. Very, very cool. So we always love to ask about food pairings with the wine. What are some of your favorite food pairings to pair with this particular Chenin?
For this, I love like a super fresh, like a burrata salad. So burrata, like, the new fresh pressed olive oil that are just being released from the fall harvest. If you've got summer, you're a little later into the season, stone fruit, peaches, arugula, snap peas are great too.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
Yeah,
I can see this, a burrata and peach salad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can't wait for that season. But yeah, I'm not in a hurry. But still, there's a lot of really, interestingly enough, in Philadelphia, higher end French restaurants that have been going nuts on this wine. So they probably reordered 5 times.
Wow.
So for some reason, this 19 Chenin has just been right up their alley. So it's been fun to kind of watch what some of the pairings they've done.
How many different states are you guys selling your wine in these days?
Like 7 now.
Right now, actively 7. Yeah, we've kind of there was a boom sort of when this kind of wine started to take off. There are a lot of small distributors opened and came to one of the first raw wine festivals in Los Angeles, and those markets have ebbed and flowed. But yeah, I'd say solidly right now we have like 6 or 7 states that we're continuously selling wine to.
Nice. Yeah, it can be such a tough thing with distributors getting merged and acquired by others, and you're the flavor of the month one month, and then all of a sudden they can't sell your stuff again. It's just it's such a tricky business, but it sounds like you guys are managing it, and hopefully you're getting on the road and actually getting into the arenas is important as well. So hopefully you guys are doing some travel, I imagine.
Yes.
They're also in this book.
They are in that book, yes. If only we knew someone who was a contributor to that book.
Yes, but I am not the one who writes about Brix, so bias is out there.
Yes, nice. So let's move on to the Pinot Noir, the 2020 Kick On Ranch Pinot Noir. And before we jump into this, I have to ask about the movie, the Netflix film. It's been my number one question, and I was going to hold on to it. But how did it come about that you guys were featured so prominently in?
But wait, hold a minute. I know not everyone has their cameras on. How many people have seen the film on Netflix?
Oh, okay. Larry and Sandy saw it. I've seen it. Allison. Okay, we're gonna assume we're gonna assume everybody else who's blocked has seen it. So yes.
Yes. So Holiday in the Vineyards. Last February, I got an email just out of the blue, like all the, many emails you get in your inbox from people you don't know, from a woman who has a company that I guess the sole purpose of this company is to provide beverages for specific movies and needs. So when somebody's planning a movie, I guess Netflix had this plot about a garagiste sort of wine community. Yes. And they were looking for like a small production wine that they could use in some of their scenes. And it was very, she's like, I can't guarantee anything, but there's no charge to you. If you just want to send some sample bottles, then, we can see what happens. And so our daughter is the biggest fan of Christmas movies. And so I thought, well, I'm just going to do it just on a lark because, this would make her day if this actually happened. And I didn't hear anything for a long time. And then, there were the shutdowns and all of that.
Right.
And so I just kind of thought, oh, well, it was a couple of bottles, no big deal. And then I heard again from her, the company owner in November, and she said, well, the movie's complete, and I've seen the stills, and you've got some really prominent featuring going on, like, just
Wait.
so you know.
But don't you have a table in it? You have a table and you're pouring wine.
So again, we had no idea whether the wines were going to appear or if it was going to be a quick shot of something, but they actually created a character named Joe, who is the imaginary winemaker.
They made the banner. That wasn't our banner.
They made a banner.
I was wondering about that because
A
that
wine
banner
banner.
is a character unto itself.
Like, can I get that? Like, I want it.
Yes.
Yeah. So Joe, the winemaker, is pouring the wine, and it's the beautiful couple. This is when they fall in love, when they sit down at a table with a bottle of Brix wine, and they bare their souls to each other, and then they have this dancing scene. And
But this is like an hour and a half into the movie, so we were sitting and watching the premiere, and we're like, well, maybe we missed it, or it's not going to happen.
yeah, so they invited us to the premiere. So we went to the Warner Brothers back lot, and
Oh, wow. Nice.
walked the red carpet and saw the premiere. And yeah, so it was going on and on and on. And I'm like, are you sure we're really in this movie? And then there it was on screen.
And
Sort of
it was like, there it really is.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, it was quite surreal. And my phone started blowing up, and then our website got like 1,000 times more views than any other time in its existence. And
You see, movies have an effect on the wine industry.
yeah, I think so.
we heard from people we hadn't heard from in years, like, oh my gosh, I saw your wine in this movie. We were wondering how we were going to hear, like, how many people want to admit that they're really watching.
In fairness, because I have a little bone to pick with the movie,
It's not a little bone that you're picking, but go
I
ahead.
had two bones to pick, but one of them is the line at the end is, we want Garage East wines to be in every market, which just doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
Technically, at 3,000 cases, you guys are not Garage East, right?
correct.
Just
But that's where we
clarify.
started, so it was nice. That was our roots.
Yeah,
so
they
it
did
makes
not,
sense.
yeah, it's true. And they didn't, consult us. We would have loved to
Oh.
have been consultants on this movie, because then we
Sure.
really could have dialed things
There would
in.
have been
But
some changes, that's for sure.
Yeah.
and
You mean like
even
you mean like the white wine that came out of the Beaujolais bottle at the beginning?
There
You
were
can't-
several things.
there were, yes, there were some issues, but I think, for the most part,
Yeah.
it was silly, but it was fun, and it was definitely a
Which
surprise.
wine of yours are they drinking in the movie? Scott wants to know.
It's the Syrah that we're going to finish this tasting on, the 2020 Syrah.
Very nice. Excellent. So I assume you've gotten little stickers up that you're putting on your bottles that say, as seen on Netflix at this point, and really leaning into the promotion that you've got.
Funny enough, we have investigated this possibility. It involves some licensing issues, so we'll see if that works out or not.
Yeah. I can see a parody label in like the Netflix logo and colors, but with Brix instead of Netflix. I think
We'll see what we can come up with.
Chris is all about towing the line with his parody, labels. But if you just say that you're Joe Brix,
No, right?
I mean, really, they can't take your likeness without permission.
That's a good point. My middle name is Brix.
and Omar Gooding, he's probably available for other events and whatnot. I can't imagine he's that in demand or that expensive. You could bring him along to festival pourings and whatnot.
He did a great job.
He did, yeah.
He's a funny.
It, It was a fun movie, and I will say, so my girlfriend and I, every holiday season we play a holiday movie bingo, where we have a list of about 150 or 200 different tropes and cliches that are found in holiday movies, and then we pick 25 of them, put them on a bingo card, and play against each other before we watch the movie. But I have officially added, a winery that you recognize and have drunk their wine before, onto the list at this point. So. Congratulations. The Brix box is now part of official Christmas movie bingo.
And just rest assured, because the guy who produces the film, has a vineyard up in like Santa Clarita.
No. Petaluma.
Petaluma.
Yeah, because that's where they filmed the first two movies, the California
now you're
Christmas.
Going to get me on my whole other gripe about the second movie of that one. The Christmas and the holiday.
California Christmas.
California Christmas, the second year, their whole relationship was banking on the argument of the commute.
Right.
He had a helicopter, but apparently the commute from Petaluma to San Francisco was enough to break up their relationship.
The 101 can be brutal,
When you have a helicopter.
Hey.
He flew in on a helicopter. I'm not sure why that became the issue.
Details.
Yeah, exactly. Well, congratulations on being movie stars. You'll get a good solid like 5 to 10 years of juice out of that, I'm sure. And do you have people who come into the tasting room now specifically because of that, or
Well,
Some
so
people reach out.
we've had people reach out for sure to ask, for more info, and yeah.
The movie Sideways put Pinot on the map, and I remember after that movie, everyone kept saying the next grape will be Syrah, and poor little Syrah for 20 years has never quite made it. As anyone will know, people love Syrah, but it doesn't sell. But maybe because your Syrah was the star of this film, you guys are going to turn that around.
Yeah.
I would gladly accept that if that happens.
Make us very happy.
I think the Syrah-volution is going to start with
That's right.
J. Brix.
All right.
All because of Holiday in a Vineyard and Jay.
Holiday in the Vineyard. What are you gonna do?
Would be pretty amazing.
Nice. So speaking of sideways, let's circle back to the Pinot Noir that we are drinking, the 2020 Audire. Was that, did I pronounce that correctly?
Audire.
Audire, got it.
The Latin word for listen,
Okay.
which we use because the kick-on Pinot Noir is notorious in the Valley for being on the leaner, higher acid side. Almost nobody was bottling it as a single varietal before we did. I think Hitching Post did 1 or 2 vintages, and Adam Tolmont from Ojai Vineyard may have done 1 or 2. But otherwise, all the winemakers who were buying it were blending it back into their really rich, ripe Pinot from other areas in Santa Barbara. So for us, it was like, it's a quieter style. It's not that big in your face kind of cherry cola that some people think of as synonymous with Santa Barbara Pinot Noir. So you kind of have to tune into it a little bit, but it's very rewarding once you do.
Yeah. No, it's really lean and earthy. I think, I always think of Santa Rita Hills as having a very earthy component to it. And obviously this is not that. This is, where is the Kick-On Ranch in relation to Santa
Mountain
Rita?
Range over to
Okay.
the north. So very similar, cool climate. It's a stone's throw of Vandenberg Air Force Base, which is why Riesling does so well out there in Pinot Noir. It was originally planted to Syrah, and the Syrah would never ripen. So they grafted over to Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, and then they added Riesling on the blocks where we're at, A and B block.
And so how would you, go ahead.
I was to say there's actually a spot where some of the vines have reverted back into some Syrah, and it tastes amazing. And would do really well now, and actually would ripen. So something to think about in the future.
Cool climate Syrah is delicious. There's some good Syrah planted up in that area.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be cool climate, Syrah. For sure.
Yeah, my belief is that the best Syrah always has to be planted within eyesight of some like water source, because you need that sunlight bouncing off the water and kind of providing a secondary heating to the grapes to ripen them fully. But so I imagine being closer to the coast in that that area, you know, not right on the ocean, obviously, but you know, that can help. So how did you come to discover this vineyard? Was this another you know, one that you had heard about, or was this like a friend of a friend said, hey, like you should check this out?
It was the Riesling.
It was originally because we wanted to make Riesling. So we had tasted the Ojai Vineyard, Adam Tolmock's Kick-On Ranch Riesling, and that was the first California Riesling that we ever had, where it was like, again, you know, where is this? This is great. This is after we had been making wine for a couple of years. Actually, maybe just our second vintage, 2010.
Yeah.
And you know, it was again, friend of a friend, you know, we mentioned, hey, you know, this Riesling, this is great. And a friend of ours said, oh yeah, I know that vineyard manager, I'll connect you. And we were at the same place at the same time. And he said, yeah, I can vouch for these guys, you know, and said, all right, sure. You know, I'll sell you some Riesling. What the heck? And so, yeah, that's kind of how it started.
Nobody wanted Riesling back in 2010. Very few people.
Yeah.
Which now there's actually a waiting list to get Riesling from Kick-On, and they're actually converting vines from Pinot to Riesling, which I never thought I would see.
Wow, that's interesting.
Which was really awesome.
So 2010, we worked with Riesling, and then we felt, I guess, confident enough after 2 years under our belts to the following year decide to pick up a little Pinot Noir, and they had some available there. And since we already knew and loved the vineyard, we figured that would be a good place to start. And that's really, yeah, that's the only Pinot that we've ever worked with ourselves for our label.
Nice. And I mean, is this the style that you love, that you really want to work with?
So this depends on the vintage. It's very vintage specific, the Pinot Noir from Kick-On Ranch. 2020 was a year where it was the growing season, it was just kind of slow until the very end. And then there was this threat of rain
Heat spike, yeah.
and a heat spike before we might have wanted to let this hang a little bit longer, honestly, but you have to deal with what the weather is throwing at you. So
Right.
we picked it. So yeah, there are other vintages of this wine that we've made that are a little bit higher in alcohol, a little bit more robust, not ever in like the, you know, the beat you over the head Santa Barbara style that some places do heavily extracted. But yeah, that's one that there's a lot of vintage variation in the Pinot Noir. Some of our sites are really reliable, like the same.
The B block, the vines are north and south.
Okay.
And so there was one morning when the heat wave hit, it was 104 degrees at 9:30 in the morning.
That's
So
that's
all-
just unheard of, like west of the 101 in Santa
Yeah.
Barbara.
So the east facing side of the Riesling rows got cooked.
Yeah.
Our Riesling goes east and west. We had no burn at all. So that was one of the reasons why I was like, all right, we knew it was coming. We were like, let's pick. And the people that didn't pick, they didn't get anything more.
Wow.
So it's just one of those gambles where it's like, you can sometimes wait it out if it's got some time to go, but if you're close and you see that coming, it's, you know, hedge your bet.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of this year's harvest, at least up here in Paso Robles, where there were, you know, rains being forecast in October. So a lot of people kind of hustled to get grapes picked because they were concerned about the rains and mildew because of the grapes had become so ripe at that point.
Right, especially being such a later pick in season
Yeah.
too. Yeah, it was like,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So 2020, I know, was a year with a lot of smoke, and there were big fires down in Montecito area, if memory serves, in Santa Barbara. It seems like these grapes weren't affected by any of that, or had any issues with smoke taint.
no, we went up a couple times during the fires, and I think Riverbench was the only time we could smell a little bit, but it was so faint, and I had to worry about smoke taint. I mean, it was a worry in the back of our mind, but
Yeah.
it never thankfully translated into the wine.
Yeah, absolutely. No, this is delicious. So how did you come up with the Audire name for this? Is it just for this vintage, or is that the name that you give to all your Pinots?
That has been the name for our Kick on Ranch Pinot Noir, which is the only one that we make since the beginning, just because it is that quieter style, and Audire means listen. So you have to kind of tune into it a little bit to kind of get to know it. It's yeah, that's the Kick on wines that we make, and we've worked with Pinot Gris from there, Riesling, you know, all the different ways. And I studied Latin, and we started with Latin names, and it felt like, okay, that's where we're going to stick with for Kick On. And yeah, the wines sort of name themselves. I figure it out like after a lot of times when we're doing a new wine, it just takes some time to once we've got it in, to taste it from barrel and see where the direction it's going, and it always just sort of bubbles up.
I think she just wants to challenge my spelling because I'm terrible at spelling. She's really good at it. So people ask me, I'm like, you're talking to the wrong person. Like,
It's Pinot, Pinot.
yeah, exactly.
Got it. Had to think about that one for a second. That's nice. Yeah, I know, Emily, you know, your background is like storytelling and whatnot. So, you know, I imagine you know, really when you're doing the tasting, you come up with, you know, kind of a story behind each of these wines and use that to describe your tasting notes and kind of the creation of each of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And they all really do have a story. So it's not that hard. It's just, you know, hearing what it wants to become and expressing that, because every vineyard that we work with really is special in its own way. And the more time you spend there, and the more times I think that you make a wine from a certain spot, you just get to know it in a different way. It's like an old friend, you know, in a way. So yeah, it just generally sort of happens organically, like this whole thing. You don't have to think about it too hard.
Yeah. Have you are you planning on just sticking with Kick on Ranch for your Pinot moving forward, or are there other sites that you'd, you know, like to buy grapes, maybe do some comparative Pinots across the area?
I mean, if I could ever get the old vine planted in 1973 Biennacido Pinot, then I would probably go for that, just because that was one of the first ones that we ever had our hands on. But I don't think any others at the moment. I never say no, but I'm not
right
looking for it. I feel like there's enough Pinot out there right now, but Meunier was a nice addition.
Yes, yeah, which we will get to in a second. I know Allison is champing at the bit to get there, but
no, because you know there's a lot of Pinot out there, but there's a lot of good Pinot out there.
That's true. That's true. What sort of before we get into food pairings with this, what kind of oak profile are you putting this wine in? Are you doing any new oak? Is it all neutral?
It's all neutral.
Okay.
This one was in a little bit of the demi-muses that we have, the 600-liter.
So great big barrels.
We try to do Grenache and Pinot in them just because they're, you know, thinner skinned, easier to oxidate. They just tend to do really well in that format.
Yeah, those, I mean, the demi-muses are from 2006. They're very old.
They are 06.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, we got our first new oak barrels in 2021.
Two of them, one for red and one for white.
And
wow.
So just to play around with just like a little portion here and there with different wines. But yeah, with
one of the lots was like 7 neutrals, and then you put 1 new in there. So yeah, just a kiss of new oak.
Nice. So bringing in like 1 or 2 barrels every year just to provide that little taste of new.
Here and there.
How do you I have to ask, how do you keep a barrel from 2006 you know, fresh and leak proof? Do you guys have to reseason them every year, or are they just so well crafted that you don't worry about that?
Those are the easiest ones, but we do steam them really well, and then we sulfur as well, burn sulfur in it. And that tends to do really well.
You have to every year for any barrel steam and sulfur it and clean it out. You don't leave the remnants of the previous year.
No, Especially the barrels that you're bottling early, say like March, April, those tend to dry out a lot by the time you're ready to use them again.
Mhm.
They're kind of like start out as water features until they seal up. But they always find a way to seal up. It's pretty amazing. So
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I first got into wine, I had always heard like after 4 or 5 years, that's kind of the end of a barrel's life. But I feel like, and I don't know if it's just the way that the cooperages are working these days, it's, just producing a better, more consistent product or whatnot. But it sounds like I'm hearing more and more wineries that are, working with the same barrels for 6, 7, 8 years, a decade or more. I think it's just one of those, I guess, if you keep it in good condition, they can last a lifetime.
yeah, and I'd say the first 5 years of making wine, we could find really well maintained neutral French oak that wineries wanted to sell and get rid of because they like to have a lot of oak and new
Yep.
oak, 100% oak. And that's changed a lot recently. They're much harder to find now because you have breweries that are taking them now as well,
Distilleries. Yep.
and people that just love the neutral French oak. So it's like they're just much more difficult to find.
Yeah, it does. And Allison can speak to this, but it does seem like, especially among the more garagey, smaller producer, and part of it is just the economics of it, but there does seem to be this swing away from, using not even a lot of oak, but even like any oak at all. I feel like I'm finding more and more producers who are, strictly into
It comes
neutrals.
down to money. Small producers can't afford to buy a new barrel. So
Right.
you start making wines, and trust me, there are those who pick varieties that typically see oak, and they're doing oak chips and oak
Yeah.
staves because they can't afford a new barrel. So you either do that or you work with grapes that you find cement or stainless steel or something else instead of oak and neutral barrels, because it's really expensive to get a new French barrel.
Yeah, it took me 13 years to pull the trigger. I was like, well, I guess this is my birthday and Christmas present. All right.
Exactly.
I mean, that's why you have to really put in context. I had lunch today with a new producer in Napa, new family, and I have good things to say. I went a little skeptical, but very nice things to say. Nice family. But they come with more money. They have money from something else. This is not an ego vanity project by any means, but they're not, a little here, and we're going to build up to buy one barrel. It's, starting with what you need. And
Right.
it's just an interesting thing. A neutral barrel, by the way, to answer Barbara, is a barrel. So barrels will give off, will impart flavor into the wine. So you can toast a barrel. You can have a heavy toast, a medium toast, and a light toast. But the younger the barrel, the more that kind of wood will influence the wine. But a neutral barrel will still, you have the wine living in there. It's not going to impart flavor, but it'll influence the texture. And if you think about that's why a lot of times when you get vanilla notes, that's the use of French oak. And if you get more dill and pickle notes, that's American oak, because the oak actually imparts flavor into the wine. But neutral barrels don't impart flavor, and that's the key.
And generally, Barbara, think of it like a half-life of an isotope, where every time that barrel is used, a larger proportion of the vanillins and the tannins and the other phenolics that are in that wood or that are imparted into the wine are dissolved out of the barrel or leached out of the barrel into the wine. So eventually, after, depending on the toast and the barrel, but generally after like 3 or 4 uses, those barrels are not seeing any noticeable tannins or vanillins inputting into the wine. So they're considered to be neutral at that point, where you can put the wine in, and when you take it out, it's going to be more or less the same juice that you put in there, minus just the standard oxidation that happens at that point.
And oak allows a little bit of oxidation, which is what's helping evolve the wine, whereas stainless steel doesn't allow oxidation, and you get much more the purity of the fruit. And when you get cement, like a cement thing, because of the shape and everything, that has the wine is moving, so you don't have to stir it, but it's moving in the lees around in itself, and you know, concrete doesn't impart flavor, but it also affects the texture of the wine.
Yeah.
The
And Jody,
mouthfeel
yeah, Jody, how many
and
vintages would you say a barrel takes to become neutral?
3.
3. Okay.
We
Yeah.
consider 3 after 3 pretty much neutral, unless it's American oak, then it might be 7.
Although it's getting harder and harder. The American barrels are now, it seems like, as expensive as the French barrels, because that's what all the bourbon producers are using
Yeah.
these days. So
High demand, you know.
yeah, that's why they're moving into places like Hungary, Slovenia, obviously before the what do you call it? Not blockades, but Russian oak was another one that was had been used quite a bit. But
Not anymore.
Right, exactly, because of
But actually, it's interesting because I was just a couple weeks ago, I was judging at the San Diego International Wine Competition and was blessed with the category of wines aged in bourbon barrels, but they were not big bourbon barrels. They were wine barrels that went to bourbon that came back.
Oh, wow.
that's a thing these days. I'm seeing more wineries that are doing that.
Yeah.
We have
Yeah.
one bourbon barrel that was started at Jim Beam, went back to France, and had cognac in it, and then came to us. But we're making brandy with it. So
Okay, good. No bourbon barrel Pinot Meunier coming down the pike.
Oh, that just sounds terrible.
It really does.
It is sort of like, that sort of sounds like putting milk in your red wine.
You need to get off TikTok, Allison. Seriously, stay off of TikTok. Awesome. So, to me, this is, again, I will use the term lean, very acid-driven Pinot Noir, not the lush style that you can find as you get further north, which is my preference. I like this style. I like the leaner, more of that garrigue, forest floor, earthiness, real bright fruit on this, but dry fruit. What food pairings would you put this with? To me, like this cries out for mushrooms, I think, with that great acidity and the earthiness. And I'd love to do this with just some like grilled or roasted portobello mushrooms would be amazing with this.
Yeah, it does really well with chanterelles too.
Mm.
They grow right around this. So yeah, mushrooms are great. They're great, savory.
Yes.
Maybe in a risotto, lots of Parmigiano Reggiano.
I like that too.
Bump
Yeah.
up that umami.
Yeah, that creaminess, the acidity of this balanced with that creaminess of a risotto. I think that would be super delicious. Excellent. Nice. Allison, any thoughts?
Oh, everything you have Pinot with. Salmon, lamb
duck
chop,
breast, filet mignon, that kind of stuff.
lamb chops. I mean, what does, when in doubt, Pinot is the grape to pair with, the wine to pair with almost anything. But when you have like that kind of acidic, more bright style Pinot, yeah, I like it. I like it with I like it with salmon. I like it with mushroom risotto, a good mushroom pasta, like kind of a creaminess from the mushrooms. Yeah. Something where the acidity can break through.
Awesome. I love it. So from Pinot Noir to Pinot Meunier, before we logged on, we were talking about just how little Pinot Meunier is grown here in California. Allison, go ahead.
Here's your fun fact. So Chardonnay has 87,391 bearing acres planted in California, and little Chenin Blanc only has 3,774 bearing acres in California. Big disparity between those two, but that's still 3,000. When we jump down to our little friend Pinot Meunier, our dear friend Pinot Noir has 46,479 acres planted of bearing fruit in California. That is the second most planting to Cabernet that has 91,000 plus acres planted. Our little Fred Meunier has 151 acres planted in California. So very, very little amount. So when you can get your hands on it, you grab it.
And I hope you are all taking notes because there will be a test on this at the end. It will not be open book. So how did you guys come to discover Pinot Meunier? Was this something that you sought out that you really wanted to work with? Was this just one of those things where it kind of fell into your lap? How did some of those 151 planted acres come into your possession?
Well, we've been working with Pinot Gris from Riverbench for quite a while, and we knew they had Pinot Meunier planted out there, and just kind of interested in it. But they were taking all of it for their sparkling program, so I inquired one year, is there any possibility of getting it? I was like, oh, absolutely not, no. So I was like, all right, well. So the next year goes by, I'm like, so any thoughts on that Pinot Meunier? He's like, let me think about it. So then the third year is when I finally got, you know what, we can give you some. So
they also make a still Meunier now.
Do they now? Okay, I haven't had.
I think I tasted it last year, if I recall. Okay. I usually remember when I can get my hands, or maybe it was a sparkling Meunier, 100% sparkling Meunier. I just remember that might be what it was, sparkling. But
so they've been planning a little bit more, but yeah, we were pretty much the first outsider to be able to get our hands on it. And I think we got 4. We ended up getting 4 tons, and we made 3 still, and we did 1 ton of pet nat.
Meunier is the name of the grape. Pinot Meunier is the name of the grape.
Yeah, I don't know the exact translation. I think it's something like more maritime, because I'm thinking like mussels. No, maybe not. Anyway, isn't there like a Sol Meunier? Like
that's Meunier. It's a different word. Yeah,
that's true.
I don't know the etymology of Meunier, but now I'm definitely going to look it up.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're the Latin scholar. We should lean on the Latin scholar for this one.
It is a different grape, but Sandy, in the region of Champagne, the 3 primary grapes of Champagne are Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Pinot Meunier. Historically, Pinot Meunier was considered that workhorse that, nobody really prized. It grew everywhere, and it just ended up in all the blends. And then if you had a Blanc de Blancs was 100% Chardonnay, and Blanc de Noirs were 100% Pinot Noir. But in probably the last 10 years, Meunier, which it also goes by that name without Pinot, and it's also known as Schwarz Riesling, it has really taken on. It's got a fan base unto its own, and you'll find now 100% Pinot Meunier sparkling wines, and then you find single bottling still red wines, and it makes this incredible wine. I believe it's related to Pinot Noir, right?
Yeah, it's not a mutation like Pinot Blanc or Pinot Gris, and I don't believe it's a cross-pollination of Pinot Noir and something else. I think it got the Pinot simply because it has the pine cone shaped bunches, but I believe the Pinot Meunier, it's a bigger grape with a little bit of a thicker skin on this. So you guys can handle it. You can kind of speak to the differences between the physical differences between Meunier and Pinot Noir.
Yeah, clusters are a little bit bigger, but I mean, there's obviously varying sizes on Pinot Noir as well, depending on clone, but definitely thicker skin.
And the name, I've got it for you. So the name Meunier comes from the French word for miller, and that's because that the leaves have a downy white, like flour looking dust on them. So they call it Meunier because of this dustiness on the leaf. And other synonyms it's called Dusty Miller in England.
Oh, I saw Dusty Miller. Dusty Miller played third base for the Dodgers from 78 to 83, if I remember correctly.
It has some other French names, and then it's also called Müller Traube in Germany. And it's all because of these fine white hairs on the leaves. Even though some clones don't have any hairs on the leaves, but historically that's where it comes from.
The more you know, again.
The more you know.
Now you know, and knowing is half the battle. Yes, Sandy.
And it's actually one of the most widely planted grapes in France. But most people don't know that because it's just blended in with champagne, in Champagne blend. So.
Yes, it tastes great and is less filling. Exactly, Scott. Very good. You'll be here all week. This is not Pinot Meunier light, unfortunately. This is the champagne of this is Meunier High Life, the champagne of champagne grapes.
What was the first vintage you got these grapes? Because you said you asked for 3 years.
2020. No,
Yeah,
we
that
asked
was
for
2020. That's right. Yeah, it
And
was 20.
we ended up with more than we had expected
Yeah.
because COVID threw everything into disarray. And so they ended up deciding to use less than they had planned for their own estate wines. And so they offered us a couple of extra tons at a good price. So we leaped in with both feet.
And so you said you make 3 tons of still wine and you did a sparkling wine?
Yes. Yeah, which unfortunately sold out, but it turned out really well.
It was a sparkling rosé Pinot Meunier.
Wow.
Are they still nice in giving you 4 tons?
They
No.
they had to take some out for disease on one side, but there's more coming online, so I have been offered more this vintage, so it's good.
Ah, how many acres do they have planted?
They're up to, there's 2 different blocks now. I think it's 7 acres. And
All
then
right, Allison, do the math. What percentage is that of the total Pinot Meunier
Like
planted
4%?
acreage?
There's more coming.
It's like 5%.
5%?
It's a little under. It's a little under 5. Yeah, it's like 4 point something. 4.8.
Hold on, I will use my trusty calculator. If you said they have 7 acres,
Yes.
it's 0.46%.
It's 4.6%.
0.046.
Right. So 4.6%.
Yeah.
Got it. All right. Glad we solved that. Nice. I mean, obviously you're limited in the amount that you get, but are you looking to kind of do a sparkling with it again if you get more, or has the still red version of it been so popular that you'll kind of put all your resources into that?
I mean, it could return, but it doesn't have to. There's definitely enough interest in just the still red that we don't need to do it. It'll just be because I forgot that I did it and all the pain that I went through to do it. And then, oh yeah, let's do that again. And I'm like, wait, why am I doing this? No. It's just because pet nats are very
I was gonna say you just described winemaking. I mean,
yeah, it's like winemaking and then getting hit over the head again.
Head nat, yeah, getting hit over the head with the wine bottle multiple times after you've thought that you were done with it.
Done correctly are very labor intensive.
Yes, they are. Absolutely.
Really as much work as making, champagne. I mean, it's basically the same thing if you're doing it right.
You don't have to riddle a pet nat.
Just once.
That's true. Nice. So do you find with the Pinot Meunier that your production techniques are similar to what you do with Pinot Noir, or does it really have kind of a style of its own when you produce it?
It's very similar.
We treat it the same way. It expresses itself differently, but we're pretty much using the same methods. It's fully destemmed, ferments, in open top fermenters with regular punch downs, fairly slow, cool fermentation, never too crazy. And then pressed into barrel after about 2 weeks or so.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such an interesting grape, and
I think it's a parent of Pinot Noir.
Okay.
I believe. I don't know the other parent of Pinot Noir. I think it's one of the parents of Pinot Noir.
Yeah, I thought Pinot Noir's parents was one of those lineages that nobody had ever been able to track it out before, but nice. Is you okay over there?
No, it's just a friend in New York calling about my friend.
Got it. Okay. We'll carry on.
Just to clarify, a dear sommelier friend passed away unexpectedly on Monday, so it's been kind of going around the industry today. So
Okay, not to bring us down, but
Sorry,
let's talk
sorry,
Pinot
yeah.
Meunier because it makes people happy. That's all right. Yeah, I'm interested. So what kind of a lifespan have you found? I mean, obviously you've only been working with the grape for 3 years now, so you haven't had a chance to really age it. But do you think this is a wine with some ageability potential, or is it really a drink young, drink right now type of wine?
I think it's going to age well. Yeah, it has plenty enough acidity to it. I mean, I see any reason.
It's really nice. Like, it picks up some of the similar notes that you get in Pinot Noir, right? You know, kind of the red fruits and a little of that savory, earthy character. Just such a pretty wine to smell.
I tell people, if you like Pinot Noir, you'll love Pinot Meunier.
Yes.
There's actually a group on Facebook called the Friends of the Pinot Meunier Society.
Oh,
all right.
There's
I think
a
you guys need
sommelier
to.
up in San Francisco, Chris Sawyer, who started it with a few people number of years ago, but it exists, and every time someone finds a Pinot Meunier, they post it up there because, like I said, it's hard to find single bottlings of them. So, yeah.
I feel like we should do the same with Counoise, since there's less Counoise out there as well. So
There you go.
the Counoise cousins or something like that. Yes.
The Counoise Corner.
There you go. Nice. And you guys work with Counoise as well, from there in San Diego County. All the wines we have here from you guys are Santa Barbara County, or in Santa Maria, obviously. But yeah, we should note that your production facility is in Escondido, and you do work with some San Diego County fruit as well.
correct. Yeah, we do Carignan, Grenache, sometimes Merlot, Cinsault, and then we did a white blend of Vermentino, Grenache Blanc, and Picpoul.
Wow.
Skin contact.
Very nice. So 3,000 total cases. How many different lots are you guys doing? Oh, is that
Too many.
Too many.
Way too many.
At least 12 and sometimes up to 16. So
Wow.
somewhere in that range. Because
what's your largest production?
Stand Bed Red, our red blend is our largest production.
And
What is
that's
that a blend of?
It changes every year, but it typically will have Merlot, Syrah, and then either Pinot Meunier or Pinot Noir.
Huh.
And it's just,
The rare Pinot Noir blend. You rarely find Pinot Noir blended into some things.
it just adds something to that. And we just wanted to make a red that's approachable and delicious all year round. That's
fun for everyone.
kind of what we came up with.
Nice.
With the Pinot Meunier, I know that it's in the oak barrels, and it's got all those red fruits. Like, do you pair it with a lot of the same things you pair Pinot Noir with, or do you feel it works with other things, surprises?
It does really well with like Mediterranean food as well.
Sure. Yeah, like
With those spices that you get.
falafel.
Yeah, it does really well.
Nice. Yeah, I can see that because I've always found some of the Meuniers that I have had tend to have more of a lushness to them, a richness, and a little bit of a deeper flavor, like a little more intensity of the berry fruit, than a lot of Pinots out there. I don't know if you guys find the same thing with your Meunier.
Yeah, more the blue fruit type
Mhm.
thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love the falafel call, like falafel and hummus on like a pita with maybe even a little bit of a garlic spread on top of that would be
Yes.
delicious.
Maybe some lamb chop, lollipops. I don't know. I'm just
I think with the acidity and the red and kind of blue fruit notes that you get in there, it'll also work with mushrooms, with light meats. It's another food friendly wine.
Yep. So yeah, grab a bottle, go down to your local halal guy's cart, get a doner kebab or a nice gyro, and boom, Bob's your uncle.
sounds pretty good.
Make me hungry.
I know we need a halal guys here in Central Coast. Awesome. Well, let's move on from the Meunier to the star of the show, the movie star. I can already see its ego growing as we speak. Your 2020 Coquelicot Vineyard Syrah. How did this one come to be? You mentioned, you started winemaking with Grenache. Was Syrah kind of a natural evolution of that, or was it a long time making getting to Syrah?
No, they actually conned us into taking a half a ton of Syrah the same year that we did the Grenache, and we were like, why not? So we started with 1 ton of Grenache and a half ton of Syrah.
Oh wow. Okay.
And that was all from the Santa Barbara Highlands. But we found Syrah that we really liked from Alamo Creek in San Luis Obispo.
Mhm.
But the ownership changed.
Yeah,
And
it's the Leaf family who owns it now.
That's what
Right?
it is.
Yeah.
So the farming changed, and they were more into conventional style of farming. So
Right.
we were already getting Merlot from Coquelicot, and so like, do you guys have any Syrah? And he's like, well, all we have is Syrah Noir. And I was like, all right, well, we did a little research on it. We found out that it tended to have some of the flavors that we loved about Syrah, which was savory, meaty, black olive type situation. So we were like, yeah, let's go for it. And then I read that it was a darker style of Syrah. And this thing is inky, and like, I didn't think it would be darker than the Merlot, but it kind of is. But we love it. It's been great.
And these are small berries, loose clusters. They get a good amount of wind out there. Coquelicot, it's a certified organic vineyard in Solvang. So if you know where the golf course is in Solvang, it's just, you can see it.
It's in between the Mission and a golf course.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, so very dusty as well out there, and but good temperate. I mean, it gets warm, which Syrah loves, but the nights
Cold.
are very cold.
Yeah.
So it's a good shift, preserves the acidity, but the fruit gets, as ripe as you want it to.
Right. You mentioned with the Pinot and the Meunier, you're destemming everything. Are you destemming this as well? Because I know whole cluster for Syrah and Grenache has become real popular to kind of boost the acidity of those grapes.
This is typically destemmed, but we have in certain years done 20% whole cluster. Even with the Pinot Noir, we've done some of that as well. But this one was 100% destemmed.
This vintage was 100% destem. Yeah. And I feel like with this site, we found that we don't have a problem with it holding on to acidity because the nights are so cold.
Yeah.
San Diego vineyards are where you really have to worry about that because it's just never as cold at night as it is up in the Central Coast.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know that we've ever had an issue with like super high pHs or, acidity that was concerningly low with our Santa Barbara vineyards.
Yeah.
Just looking at the vineyards we work with and not actually like picking the vineyard just because of the soil. But what we've come to kind of find out is the majority, if not all of our vineyards have a very high concentration of sandy soils.
Mm-hmm.
And from all the research, those tend to hold on to acidity better than other soil types. So it was just kind of one of those things where just like, okay, well, kind of makes sense.
Yeah, that's interesting. Do you know why sandy soils tend to have higher acidity? Is it because of better drainage, or?
I think it's better drainage and silica and all that kind of plays into it.
Got it. More of that minerality kind of leaches into the vines and helps retain that acidity, I imagine.
Yeah, and then Coquelicot is like has this so much of this dusty thing going on. We don't fine or filter, but if you look at this, it's like it looks like it's just so polished and beautiful. But I think it's just part of that. All that dust coming in on the clusters helps kind of pull that out.
Well, yeah, and this is one of the more intensely dark California Syrahs that I've seen. I mean, you hold this over white and you're not getting any sort of clear meniscus line on this. I mean, this color permeates.
Opaque.
Yeah, no opacity. It's no transparency. This is pure opacity on this one.
Stainer for sure. Make
Yeah.
sure you brush your teeth after this one.
Yeah, the Toche Lavere, stay in the glass wine. But is that, I mean, is that the fruit, or are you guys doing maybe a longer maceration for this, more skin contact, or?
Wow,
It's
no,
the
it's the fruit.
fruits. That clone, Syrah Noir, I mean, I guess that's why they call it that, because it's so dark.
Mhm. No, it's delicious, and you're absolutely right in terms of the more savory notes to this. Which to me, it's I used to I used to adore California Syrahs, especially Central Coast Paso Robles Syrahs. But I've fallen out of love with them recently because I find they're getting a little too fruit forward. And to me, Syrah should have that smoky, savory, bacony, olive, brambly notes to it. And I find too many are kind of losing that aspect.
Usually you smell this fermentation on day 10 and it's just meat. It's just like this crazy meat. I'm like, like cote roti, it's just like so meaty. Like, how can we capture this? But you lose some in fermentation, but then it balances out with everything else.
Yeah. A Syrah should be a challenging wine to drink. It should not be super fruit forward. It should, really, really needs food with it, I find, a good proper Syrah, like a Côte Rôtie or a Cornache. Even San Joseph's, which are meant to be on the lighter, more drinkable side, should still give you that smoke, that bacon, that tar note. It tells you it's a Syrah. But yeah, this is beautiful. This is wonderful. Are you guys doing still just neutral oak on this one as well?
Yes. Yeah. This sees a little of that. We actually have 8 Slovenian hogsheads,
Mhm.
and a good portion of that is what this is coming from.
And those are all neutral as well.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
04s.
Wow, jeez. 20-year-old barrels. Nothing
They're
but
really well made. I love those barrels. I wish I could have gotten more of them, but
Yeah.
great.
Larry, you could pair this wine with a steak. This would be phenomenal with a steak. Yes, you can celebrate that. Save a little, go to, Sprouts and get yourself a nice prime USDA prime steak. Sorry, Mike and Jeannie. We apologize for the steak talk. There are resident vegans, Mike and Jeannie, which is why we try to give them vegan pairings as well as the meat side of things. But yeah. No, this is delicious. So you mentioned your red blend, but it seems like your focus is really in single varietal wines. That's kind of what you're focusing on. Or are you doing more blends, or
Yeah, we have a few more blends, but they're definitely on the lower production side of scale, maybe like 100 case production. But there's a few more of those.
Gotcha. And Barbara wanted to know again, I believe the Stay in Bed blend, it's different every year, but you said there's a few things that are kind of staples in it.
The current vintage is Merlot, Pinot Noir, and Syrah.
Wow. Nice. And yeah, that will vary, but are any of those consistent in it, or is it truly just like, hey, here's what's left over?
Syrah and Merlot have been very consistent in it.
Yeah, we've done it with Carignan, we've done it with Pinot Noir, we've done it with Pinot Meunier, but yeah, the backbone, Merlot is generally what we've settled on as the majority of the blend.
Mhm.
And then it's always about 10% Syrah, and then in the middle is where we play with different varieties depending on the year. And we taste through everything and just sort of put together the blend that we think is going to be the most appealing. Like, you can totally geek out if you want about the blend and parts percentages, but if you're just going to a party and you're like, well, I know they like red, like, that's also your wine.
Yeah. Well, and Merlot and Syrah is one of those combinations that, like, you hear a lot of, Cab and Syrah around these parts, but Merlot and Syrah is one I've never thought of before, or even I don't think
It
I've
really
even
works.
tasted one.
We do a little Merlot fully carbonic on its own.
Wow.
Carbonic Merlot.
Yeah, we have a 2-ton flex tank egg that we just sort a whole cluster into, pump it full of CO2, and then just let it rip. Usually goes dry in about a month, and then pull the juice off, press it, and then barrel age it in neutral French oak. It is fun. It's like an homage to Cru Beaujolais, but
California
Merlot.
style.
With
'Cause-
Merlot.
Because we had to bring Merlot back. It got such a bad rap. We're like, no.
Some people bring sexy back. You're bringing Merlot back.
I think Merlot is sexy. So there you go.
Are you doing anything else carbonic? It sounds like with that flex tank, you could really play around with some fun lots of doing different carbonic things if you wanted to.
Tend to only do that. Our destemmer is so good at whole berry, we tend to get a decent amount of carbonic up front on a portion of our wines anyway, before they start breaking down. So we usually tend to get about 4 or 5 days of whole berry carbonic up front. So it was kind of fun.
That's impressive. That's a good destemmer if you're not getting crush on the grapes and you're getting that whole berry coming through. That's nice.
Old fruit, that's where it's at.
Absolutely awesome. So what's the story behind the name of this one, the La Belle Rêveuse?
That is French for the beautiful dreamer. And because this was one of the original garage wines, we had the Grenache, and then we fermented the Syrah separately. And the Grenache was like this raring go-getter, like ripping through fermentation, like all over the place. And the Syrah was just, you could tell it was chiller, it was languid, it just sort of was at its own pace, like kind of dreamy, just sort of like, yeah, everything's fine. Totally different from the other ferment. And so it just seemed like and it was beautiful. It smelled so good and it tasted so good. And so it seemed like, this was our crazy dream, and that was like our dreamer.
I love it. I can just imagine the Syrah in the back smoking on a Gaulois, just I would take my own time during
Yeah,
the
right.
fermentation.
Tell them the Grenache, yeah, go for it.
Exactly. Yeah, the
Not beautiful.
Grenache is the American tourist who's trying to see, the d'Orsay and the Louvre and the Pompidou in the same day. And this is just the cafe. I will be here all day with my glass of wine. This is fun.
Yeah.
There you go.
Barbara
And
wants
Barbara, yes, they have 3 styles of Riesling. They have a pet nat, a dry style, and a richer, riper style.
But both of the still wines are dry, and the pet nat is pretty much dry. Just a touch of RS, but yeah, both of the still wines are dry. One is a
That's
little
interesting.
bit
Why have you leaned into the dry side of Riesling? Because it's, the traditional Riesling is that demi-sec style.
Yeah, that's why. Well, a lot of people are always like, we tell them like, oh, if you are at a table, they're like, oh, Chardonnay, and you're like, well, at that point, we didn't make Chardonnay. We have Riesling. Oh, I don't want it because it's sweet. It's like, no, just try this. You can pretend like it's Chardonnay, and then they try it, and they're like, it's dry. And you're like, yeah, and they're like, it's amazing. Like, yes, dry Rieslings are just fantastic. We love them. They age really well. They go with so many different food pairings, and it's just hard to beat. It's so delicious.
I think, Riesling is one of those grapes that California winemakers also screwed up. Because if you're in Germany and you get even their driest styles, which have residual sugar, the acidity is so high, the sugar balances it, you would never know it's sweet because you have that acidity. And if you didn't have that sweetness, you would never be able to drink the wine because the acidity is so high. And I think that, the same way California producers screwed up Chardonnay by trying to make it in a French style, I think probably a lot of California Rieslings were made sweet but didn't have the balance of acidity. So you got the dessert wine or the sweeter wine, then you did the balanced wine, because there's nothing wrong with sugar in wine if it's balanced by acidity.
Right.
And just like in Chardonnay, when they, put it through 100% mallow in French oak, but it didn't have the acidity to begin with because it had more sunshine days, and then you got a butter bomb. And now now most people have learned to make a balanced Chardonnay. So,
back to where it started.
I think I'm going to have T-shirts made up that say "There's nothing wrong with sugar in wine as long as it's balanced by acid." I think that's a good motto to live by.
Yeah, that's very true.
I mean, think about Madeira.
True.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I think about the things, that have that sugar. Riesling, Madeira, they all have really high acidity, and that's what balances them and makes them so delicious. And
Yeah.
I think that, you know, if it was all acidity or all sugar, yeah, I know you have a different thing. I mean, then you have a dessert wine, you know, like,
Or a Vino Verde.
yeah, exactly. Or a Marlborough New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, you know, where
Yes.
it's great, but after a glass or two, that acidity is so much you can't take more than a glass or two at a time because it will take the lining off your teeth, and you know, it's delicious with oysters, but there's only so much you can do.
Right. Yeah.
What about tannins, Barbara? What would you like to know about tannins? Tannins are good things. Tannins
Yeah, is the
tannins are
question
good.
what are tannins, or are tannins good, or?
Tannins can balance out a wine nicely, which, you know, it's like anything. It's moderation with the tannins. The tannins need to be balanced by the acid and the alcohol. That's kind of
And
the triangle of wine.
you get tannins two ways. You can have fruit tannins and you can have oak tannins. So the wines that you've had today have fruit tannins because they're not, you know, you get the fruit tannins and how you can taste them.
All right. So she wants to hear from Jody and Emily. So Jody and Emily, what about tannins?
For me, I am a longtime tea drinker, and so when I first started getting into wine and realized that, like, you can feel that same, it's the same thing. So tannins, like if you've had an oversteeped tea where just like the leaves have been in there too long, and you sip it and the whole back of your tongue goes like wonky, that's too much tannin. And those are naturally present in the tea leaves, just like they're naturally present in grapes and in grape stems. And so part of, I think, you know, winemaking is managing that judiciously, just like, so if you know your fruit is really ripe and you know that the stems are really ripe on the grapes, and you want to incorporate a little bit of those stems to keep it from being just overly fruity, then you might do that. Or if everything's in balance and you just want the fruit tannins and you don't want to deal with the stems, then, you know, if you macerate your fruit for longer, so once it's fermenting, if you're punching it down often and getting a lot of extraction, that can just bring out more tannins. Like, they're natural, but it's just a matter of taste, I think, to see like what you want to see in the finished wine. And it develops as the, you know, wine ages in bottles. Sometimes something can be really tannic at first, and then you bottle it and you wait a year or two and it settles in. But yeah, it's just one piece of the puzzle.
Based on that, you know, whatever that specific vintage gave you, like some are riper because it's a warmer year, and so the tannins are sometimes a little less. So like Emily said, you can do some stems in there to beef up the tannin, or let it ride as it is.
Barbara wants to ask, don't the tannins help make the wine lay down longer?
It's one of the components, but acidity is definitely, acidity and pH are more important than tannin on its own.
Yeah.
As far as aging wines. And all of the wines we make are food friendly, so they tend to be higher acidity and lower pH. And so they age longer just naturally.
Yeah, but it is a component for sure.
Tannins will soften with age.
Right.
Yes.
But they don't necessarily help a wine age. They soften with age. Acidity helps a wine keep going and going and going.
If you have a heavily tannic wine that has very low acid, it's not going to taste great no matter how long you hold on to it, because there's just not a balance there. In the same way that the third component that can assist with aging is actually the sugar content of the wine, where typically wines that have more sugar content will preserve longer because sugar acts as a natural preservative to wines. That's why sweeter wines like your ports, your, you know, Madeiras, your Auslezes, some of your sweeter Rieslings can have tremendous ageability because of that balance between sugar and acid.
Yeah, I would not necessarily equate that directly with port and Madeira, because those are also fortified, which does contribute to another part of their aging. But to your point of the Auslesen, the Rieslings go Auslesen, Baron Auslesen, the
Baron Auslese.
Sauterne, any of these dessert wines, ice wines, you know, they have the acidity and they have the sugar. And yes, that definitely helps with the aging. Fortified is a whole other thing that helps with aging.
That's true. Yes, exactly. Adding alcohol into something is also a great preservative too.
Alcohol does help.
Yeah.
Or it
That's-
doesn't kill it.
That's why I plan on living until 212, because I'm just going to pickle myself in enough alcohol to preserve. Lovely. So we're over the 8 o'clock hour, so we'll kind of start to wrap things up. I know we talked obviously with this wine about a steak would be nice. This is another one that like, yeah, smoked mushrooms or like a smoked eggplant dish, I think would be phenomenal with this on the you know, the vegetable side of things. Even like because it's got that natural smoke, like a Gouda would be a really interesting cheese to pair with this, because that Gouda has a little bit of saltiness, a little bit of like acidity, but that smoky note, I think it's a compare and a contrast type of situation with that. How about you guys? Jody, Emily, what do you think pairing with the Syrah? You're just gonna say lamb again, aren't you?
No, if you're looking for a vegan pairing, I think that maybe like a tart with black olives and some kinds of fresh herbs, like maybe thyme or
Black bean burger.
black bean burger, that would work too.
Nice.
Yeah,
I do the burger cooked in bone marrow, but that's different.
Yeah, well, that's the other end of the
That's all
spectrum is
well.
what that is. Yeah, exactly.
and
I like the tapenade call. I think like a tapenade
roasted red
crostini
peppers.
Yeah.
And yeah.
would be phenomenal with this. Excellent. So you guys, you mentioned, you know, anywhere from 12 to 16 different lots. What do you have? We mentioned some of the wines, obviously your San Diego County Counoise, the Rieslings, the Stay in Bed Red. What are some of the other wines that you guys have that you want folks to know about, or do you have any really interesting things coming down the pike?
We've got a great, if you like classic Chardonnay, we make one from Riverbench Vineyard, the same vineyard as the Pinot Meunier, which is really just like an homage to the Central Coast classic style. It's fresh, clean, not buttery or oaky, although there is a little tiny kiss of oak just to make it Santa Maria style. That's very delicious. And we've got a rosé of Pinot Noir that we made from last year's Kick On, or 2 years ago actually, Kick On Ranch. It was another one of those close call picking seasons where we pulled it, wasn't quite where we wanted for a regular Pinot Noir, so we made it into rosé. So that's fun for all year round, especially in California. And then for the new stuff, we've got a few cool things going on.
Yeah, I mean, skin contact Riesling, and then we ended up having, after we loaded up the egg for the carbonic Merlot, I had like half a bin left, so I foot tread it, and there wasn't very much juice. So I'm like, all right, I'm not gonna be able to punch this down. So I ended up having like 80 gallons of Chardonnay that hadn't fermented yet. So we put that in there with it. We'll do co-ferment of Merlot and Chardonnay
Juice.
Wow.
juice, which ended up like incredible, like super intense strawberry. It is really fun. So that one's kind of an exciting little addition.
Is that
Yeah,
what like, is it just a light red? Is it a rosé? What are you sort of classifying it as, or how are you describing it?
It's a little darker than a rosé, but it's not, dark.
It's going to be a chillable red.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's
Can you-
delicious.
Can you call it the Judgment of Paris? Because I believe like combining Chardonnay with Merlot, the Bordeaux with the Burgundy together.
I'm sure there'll be some judgments about it, but in the end, I think everyone's gonna really enjoy drinking it.
The
when
Judgment of Escondido will be the name of it.
especially when we get some warmer weather. It'll be great.
True. And then you mentioned, Biennacidos being at the top of your wish list, but are there any other grapes or varietals or regions that you guys are interested in working with, or is it pretty much just San Diego and Santa Barbara Central Coast area these days?
I'm always open. It's just the trek of getting it.
Right.
is the challenge. But I've been trying to get some Greverts for a while because I wanted something with that. Just because I love that aromatic grape.
Yeah.
Despite the fact
She thinks
that-
I'm crazy.
No,
but
I love it too. Like literally nobody is like, Gewurz, make a Gewürztraminer. We want that. Somebody did once say that, but yeah, it's something.
just a little flavor.
We always like to try something new and crazy every year. We never know exactly what it would be, but like the Chardonnay Merlot, like it just happened. But yeah, I mean, they have some Gewürztraminer out at Jurassic Park, and just a very, very little. And it's never available, but yeah, if we
Never
did
know,
get that
someday.
call.
I was gonna
Probably
say
not.
there's Gewürztraminer out there. I know people who are buying it and producing it, so it exists. It's just a matter, I guess, finding it. You guys are reminding me a little bit of there's a great Edna Valley winery called Claiborne and Churchill, but you know they do
I remember.
Pinot Noir, they do a dry Gewürz, they do a dry Riesling, just some wonderful wines. So I love not that you're following in their footsteps, you're clearly on your own path, but you know, it's nice to see the parallels.
Nice.
Absolutely. So if you know, a lot of our folks are in the Inland Empire, we've got LA, Orange County, Inland Empire, but not too far from Escondido. You know, I was able to make it down to your guys' place in about 90 minutes from Allison's house when she let me stay there. So super easy drive. So if
I
folks
wasn't
want to,
here. There was nothing weird going on.
right, exactly. Well, yeah, don't check out your underwear drawer, but it's fine. It's all good. Anyway, how can people come and visit you or you know visit you have a tasting room at your facility, or how do you guys do tastings? And
Yeah, so we're in an industrial warehouse park in a shared facility, so there's not a tasting room there. But what we do is for friends and family, which obviously, if you're here tonight, you're new friends.
just mention Forgotten Grapes, yes.
Just mentioned Forgotten
Yes.
Grapes, and yeah, we have a lovely patio that we've been doing just private tastings for people we know or people who are referred to us by someone we know, and yeah, we're always happy to do that.
Nice. And then where you mentioned distribution, where are your wines available here in California?
Yeah, I mean, it could get obviously direct, and then it
I was going to
lands
get to
all
the
over.
direct. I was leading up to it, but that's all
Direct
right.
would be best. I mean,
Okay,
but
all right.
it's out there in the market here and there. It just depends.
Okay. And if people want to buy directly from you, Jody, how can they do that?
Just go to jbrix.com.
Or Emily, yes.
Emily.
jbrix.com. We have a web shop. It's all up there, everything we currently have available, and we do ship for free on 12 bottle orders.
Good to know. And the one question that I should have asked, but I did not, but I will before we finish, is where did the J. Brix name come from?
Well, my middle name is Brix. It's a family name. I'm originally from Michigan, and there's a dairy farm that's still there and still doing production and third generation. It's just a family name, and no one ever made wine before me. But as soon as I kind of researched the other, you know, the meaning of Brix and measurement of sugar and wine grapes.
So I do all the naming of things, and you know, we started this together, and I said, I know that, you know, it's both of us, but like I can't come up with anything better than already exists. So our logo is, you know, the J stands for Jody, and then it's a degree sign.
Mhm.
So that's, if you see on the bottle, that's to represent how the ripeness of wine grapes is measured. It's actually measured in degrees Brix. So it's an official, not just wine grapes, but any kind of fruit is measured in degrees Brix. So it's like you take a little sample and there's a thing that you look into and it tells you.
Spectrometer, yes.
Spectrometer, yes.
You didn't want the e-bricks to pull in Emily and Jody?
Maybe a new label. There you go.
Or Towe Brix, which would have been fun too.
I don't know about the toe. You know, she does.
I guess you wanted to avoid the toe, like toe wine, kind of as much as possible. No offense, but yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's foot tread a few things. So just get it in well.
No, I love it, and I love the J. Brix font as well. That kind of like classic typewriter, but you know, fuzzy. It's very cool. So your aesthetic is fantastic.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, so website if folks want to go and visit, buy additional bottles, try the Riesling, try the Counoise, buy more Pinot Meunier. What is the URL for them to go visit?
Yeah.
What's the URL for them to go visit?
Oh, jbrix.com.
jbrix.com. There you go. And when we send out the as we always do, we send out the email for the replay of the video and we post on YouTube tomorrow morning. We will include Jody and Emily's emails on there as well, so you can contact them directly to purchase more or to schedule that lovely patio tasting, which as the weather starts to get nice, I think will be lovely. Nice. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. This was fun. Great wines, always amazing. We love what you're doing. So a reminder for everybody, the next winery we're going to be working with is a Paso Robles legend, Giornata. So Italian varietals from up here in Paso Robles. That email should be going out in the next week or two, and then that virtual tasting will be on the 14th or 15th, sorry, 14th, Thursday the 14th of March. So keep an eye out for that. Before we shut it down, does anybody want to unmute yourself? If you guys can stick around for a minute, does anybody have any questions that they want to ask Emily or Jody? Comments, questions, critiques, rants? Allison? No
This
rants.
is just
There was lots
really,
of
really
questions
good.
in the chat today.
It's true. Yeah.
Just really good. I mean, first time tasting the Pinot Meunier, delicious, and your Syrah and your Pinot are amazing. So thank you so very much. Really, really great.
Yeah, the Pinot tastes like a $50 to $60 Pinot. It's
Seriously.
really, really good.
Thank you. I've been saying that forever, but I can never get there.
No,
She
I
won't
love
let you
Pinot.
charge that.
I really do love a Pinot, and it's great. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I know it's a lot of meat.
Who did the
I have
poetry on the
to
back?
say that
Oh.
that
Hold on, Scott.
Yeah.
Scott.
Go ahead.
Oh,
Go ahead,
Sandy.
Sandy.
Go ahead.
Sandy, okay. I have to say that Syrah was so good that I will be coming for that in San Diego.
All right, great. Glad to hear it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next up on the stage is Scott. Scott is up on the stage. Cinnamon, you are on deck.
Sorry about that, Sandy. I just curious, like, who wrote the poetry on the back?
Oh, that's me. I figure, at least my parents can be proud that an English degree actually did pay off in the long run.
Oh. You're
Well
you're
done,
a
well done.
walking Avenue Q song. What do you do with a BA in English?
Wine
There you
labels.
go.
Yeah, exactly.
Saying
So-
for too many
So
years.
does Pinot Noir actually trouble you and disturb you?
Oh, always.
It is the heartbreak grape, so it
It
totally
is the
makes
grape
sense.
that will leave you with longing and regret if you've seen the menu.
It's true.
Absolutely.
Although, as
Um,
one winemaker once told me, like, you work with Nebbiolo when you found Pinot Noir too easy to work with. So,
Okay, so that
And then, the Pinot Meunier says,
Ah,
I
was
caress
like-
the infinite light that even at night overshadows the moon and sings to me.
14.6.
wait a second. Even at night overshadows the moon. That's a song lyric that I am having trouble placing at the moment. But it's not you too, is it?
Not you too.
Night overshadows the moon.
I caress the infinite light that even at night overshadows the moon and sings to me.
No Googling allowed.
Yeah.
No, I know. And I've been drinking way too much this week, so my brain is shutting down. So, and I can hear it. I can hear it in my head is the problem. So,
Do you want to turn the recording off while your brain thinks?
No, I'm sure we'll get it offline. I'm sure it'll come to me at 2 a.m. this morning, where I'll bolt upright and go, boom. That was Yeah, exactly. Stupid name that tune. All right, I will email you offline when I come up with the answer. And yes, no Googling. Lovely. Awesome. Well, if there's no further questions, thank you guys so much for being here. This was amazing. Again, you can go visit jbrix.com, jbrix.com to purchase more of their wines, check out their entire selection, and yeah, go visit them. Their production facility is actually in a really cool spot in Escondido. It's up on that big hill, and then you've got the hospital right above you. So it's like when you're driving through Escondido, that's what you see. Just look down from the hospital and they're right there. Boom. You'll pass by. Yeah, I should have a big sign or something. Put a big. But get that banner from the movie producers.
There you
They're
go.
not
Right.
using it.
Are you guys near like a Stone Brewery then?
We are, we're just basically a block away.
Never been there.
Well, now you have a reason to go to two places in
I was
Escondido.
joking. I knew exactly where they were.
Okay, all right. I can never tell when you're joking, Scott. That's the problem.
You also can't see
Yeah.
him.
That's true too. Yeah, strictly.
Ah, that's planned.
It's fair. Awesome. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jody. Thank you, Emily. You guys were awesome. This was great. And hopefully we will see everybody next month for G or Nada, which should be a fun one. So, all
And
right.
remember, June 29th, save the date.
Yes. Pencil it in now. Festival of Forgotten Grapes. You will be the first to know when tickets go on sale, including our special VIP tickets that we will be offering with some very cool perks. So we'll let everybody know, and we'll be having some great wineries. Hopefully Brix will be one that'll be there. We're still chatting with them about that. Not to twist your arms while we have you on camera. All right. Good night, everybody. Have a good one.
Good night.
Thank you again.
Good
Take
night.
care.
Good night. Thank you.